All right, let's continue. So communication principles continued. Communication is irreversible. So I know most of you know this. Social media really helps drive this point forward. Once you say something or post something, it's permanent. Even if you delete it, it might still be saved to the cloud. It's internet is forever. And also, when you say something, it's irreversible. You can apologize, you can make up if it's something negative that you say, but that what you say is always out there. It's always there. So once you say something, it cannot be taken back. Or once you communicate something, because it can be nonverbal too. Communication has a content and a relational dimension. So content dimension being information explicitly discussed. And then relational is expresses how you feel. So the misconceptions about communication. More communication is not always better. I know they always say the more you communicate, the better you get at, the better it can make things. Not always. Sometimes you can keep on repeating things and it just gets into this mess. So you keep on communicating the same thing and it doesn't always work out. For instance, if you keep on texting someone saying, hey, call me, call me, call me, you're not going to make that message get received any better by repeating it. You might just annoy the person even more. Meanings are not in the words. So the way you say things matters. The tone of your voice. You can say, oh yeah, I'm happy, and say it in a happy tone, and people will be like, oh yeah, she's happy. Or you can say, oh yeah, I'm happy. Not so much believable, right? Tone matters. The way you say something. So if you guys work in customer service or you've been in a customer to someone and who works in customer service and they say something to you, even if they're just giving you the straight facts, the way they say it matters. It can sound condescending or it can sound really nice and understanding. Communication and the way you communicate things, the way you say things, the tone you use is very important. Successful communication doesn't always involve shared understanding. So just as I said before, where sometimes romantic relationships can be more successful if the if understanding isn't always on the same level. That's kind of where you come into the whole idea that if your girlfriend or your boyfriend asks, "Hey, how does this look on me?" and you say, "Oh, you look really fat," probably not, while you successfully communicated what you actually think, not always good to be on that same level. So shared understanding, even though you might think someone looks bad in something that they're wearing, you might not want to actually say it. And then communication will not solve all problems. So you can communicate something to death, and that still might not solve your problems. The best example in the book is, hey, when a teacher gives you a grade and you say, hey, I think I deserve so much better on this, and this is why, and your teacher communicates back to you, well, this is why I gave you the grade, and this is why it's staying that way. Yeah, you both communicated successfully, but it doesn't solve your problem. Your grade is still going to be the same. So what makes an effective communicator? Communication competence. Communicating both effectively and appropriately. So there is no ideal way to communicate. We've already discussed this. Your communication, the way you talk to someone, changes with different people in different situations. So a variety of communication styles can be effective. So the way, if you can communicate in different styles, you'll be more effective as a communicator. You can always learn new styles of communication. You can. You just have to be put in those situations to communicate in different styles. So the way you communicate, like I said, if you work in a retail situation, your customer service voice and your customer service way of communicating is totally different than the way you communicate with your friends and family. And then again, the way you communicate with your friends is different than way you communicate with your family. So you're always on your feet, constantly learning, okay, I can tell this joke to this person, but I cannot tell that same joke to another person. It will not be received the same way. Or I can say this joke to this person when I'm at home, but if I said it to that same person at a funeral, again, not probably going to work. Confidence is situational. Like I said, situational. Some people might really be great communicators when talking to their coworkers, but not really good with personal relationships, or vice versa. And then competence can be learned. That's what this class is all about. You can learn to communicate better. And a speech class, or just a class like this that has some speech elements but is mostly about the theory of speech and communication, can help you be a better communicator. So during these chapters, you're going to learn more about how to be an effective communicator, and you will improve your skills if you actually do the assignments and the activities and do the readings. Oops. So competence in intercultural communication, co-cultures, which can be age, sexuality, so on and so forth. And then there's also the actual culture. So someone from an Asian culture might act differently and communicate differently than someone in an American culture. As Americans, we're more blunt and loud, but Asian cultures might be a little bit quieter and laid back. And then, so you have to kind of know the rules of different cultures in order to better communicate with people from different cultures. And that also goes with religion as well. And motivation. How motivated are you to get your message across? People will know that even if you're speaking different languages, if you're really motivated to get across what you're saying, a lot of times you'll eventually communicate what you're trying to communicate. For instance, if you are in a foreign country and you forgot how to say, "Where's the bathroom?" in that language, if you communicate hard enough through, signs and, kind of just like pointing and using different actions, you're eventually going to get that other person to understand what you're saying. Where's the bathroom? And then tolerance for ambiguity. So knowing that you're not going to get that maybe your message might not come through as clearly as you want to, but tolerating that. And then open-mindedness, knowing that what you believe and how you communicate is not going to be the same way that other people communicate. So keeping that open-mindedness and trying to fit your situation the best as you can. Knowledge and skill, mindfulness. So there's 3 parts of mindfulness: passive observation, active strategies, and self-disclosure. So observing. First, let's talk about mindfulness. Being mindful of how you communicate with others and how you might seem to others when you communicate to them. So passive observation. Observe how others react to you. Observe how they communicate the best. Observe. Active strategies. Kind of a trial basis. See what works, see what doesn't work. And then self-disclosure. This can be good in some situations and it can be bad in some situations. But a good example of self-disclosure is saying, hey, I don't know your culture as well as I know my own culture, and I don't know how to effectively communicate this to you. How can I say this? What is the best way to word this? And most cultures and co-cultures will be like, oh, hey, this is great. This person is trying to learn more things. So I find that's the best way to go. But some cultures still, might not fully react the way you want them to, but it is a good way to being disclosing, your awkwardness about the situation might actually help you in the end. So that is the end of that chapter. It doesn't give full closure to everything we went over everything in the chapter, and it's not everything in this slideshow isn't everything that's going to be on your quiz. So make sure you even read those little sidebar things in those little fancy boxes. Make sure you're reading those too, because those things will also be on your quiz/chapter exams. All right, so make sure you're doing that. Okay, so now we're going to get into your journal entries. You'll have pretty much weekly journal entries. from now on, this one's going to be due tomorrow. They're mostly always going to be due the next day. First, before we get into what this journal entry is about, I want to get into an example of this. This example should be shared with you. You'll notice that it's in a grayish box because I did copy and paste it from the NWT site. So this is what, starting with here is his journal entry, is something that you should be doing. So these journal entries are not just going to be a couple sentences. You are actually breaking it down, and you're using references from the book. Say Adler and Proctor, they referenced not only the authors of your textbook here, but they also said the page number where they got the information for, going back and to answering the questions about the journal entry. So first you're reading the article. Sometimes it's going to be a video too. And then you're analyzing it using the chapter that you were on. So this one is chapter 1. And you can, once you get into like further chapters, you might want to even reference back to previous chapters, but most of the journal entries for that week coincide with the chapter we are reading. So this one's for chapter 1. And don't just copy and paste this, obviously, because I will be able to tell because it's right here. So you guys should know better than to copy and paste other people's work. So this is the article. Just follow the link. And if you keep on scrolling, where it starts right here, this is a long way from Los Angeles. Just keep scrolling, and all these, even past these ads, and this is the article. And it goes all the way down to here. So read the article first. It's a very interesting article. And then go to Google Classroom, and you'll see the Hembrick journal entry, instructions, and then what you need to do. So reflect on who and what you think is most responsible for Hembrick missing his boxing match. How does this reflect some of the concepts in chapter 1? So applies to needs, applies to practical goals, which is covered in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is in the beginning of the chapter. Applies to communication models, so the linear and the transactional. So those are the two types. Okay. So the linear and transactional models, those are the communication models, and also effective communication. So how competent are you in communication? So for your journal, decide who is most responsible for Hembrick missing his match. You must decide on one person who is responsible. Was there something that could have been done to prevent this? Do you think the same accident could happen in today's technological world? How does this relate to communication and responsibility? And then you will want to include key concepts from the text in your entry, just like I showed you in the example. They put the author's last name, so Adler and Proctor, and then the page number that they found it on. Explain what those concepts mean, so give a definition, and then how they apply to Hembrick's situation. So remember, use the reference or the example I gave you as reference of how long it should be. Keep to the length and answer all these questions, and you should be good. And just because it says 10 points does not mean that it's a low-graded thing. It just means that that's how our point system is. Don't think that just because it's 10 points, it's lower. It affects your grade lower. It does not affect your grade lower. Journal entries are a really major part of this course, so please do them to your fullest capabilities and follow the example. So that is the journal entry that is due tomorrow. Sorry. And it's due to Google Classroom, so make sure you get that done. And then, continue your introduction speech work. That's also in Google Classroom. We already went over what is expected of it, so please continue working on that. All right, that is due on Friday, I believe. Yep, due on Friday. So make sure you're dedicating some of your day to working on your introduction speech. All right. So have a good day.